Okay, so we're diving deep today, right? And we're diving into something you sent over. Never go back.
Yeah, yeah, never go back.
I was reading this. It really got me thinking about how tough it can be to, just stay true to who you are, especially when life throws all this stuff at you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think this piece hits on something we've probably all felt at some point, right? It's like that pull back to old habits, those mindsets we thought we'd left behind.
Yeah, it's like you work so hard to move on and then, bam, something tries to drag you right back.
Exactly. And it's not just memories, it's almost like a part of you wants to go back to that old you.
Right, like maybe it's comfortable or familiar, even if it wasn't actually a good place to be.
Maybe. There's that line in the piece about not wanting to go back to the person who made bad choices, who felt bad about themselves. I mean, that really got to me. And do we ever really escape that part of ourselves?
That's the big question, isn't it? Like, how much of our past is actually truly in the past?
Right. But I think what the piece is getting at is it's less about erasing the past and more about choosing who we want to be right now, today.
Okay, yeah, I see that. Choosing. There's that part about standing strong, fighting through the tough times.
Exactly. And that's where it gets really practical, right? It's like, okay, that sounds great, but what does that actually look like, in your daily life? What steps can we actually take to build that strength, that choice muscle?
Well, I think it starts with, like, recognizing those moments when you feel yourself being pulled back
Right.
and then making a conscious decision to move in a different direction.
Mm-hmm. It's that awareness piece, recognizing the patterns. But it also takes courage, doesn't it,
Yeah.
to actually break free from those old ways of thinking and being?
Totally. And I think that's where the whole idea of paranoia comes into. That part where it talks about not being afraid of things that haven't even happened.
Oh, yeah. That's huge. It's like we're letting fear cripple us before anything even goes wrong.
Right. It's like you're already defeated before you even start.
Exactly. We're battling shadows, like you said, instead of focusing our energy on what's actually in front of us.
And then on top of that, there's this whole other layer of, outside influences, the
Yeah.
people we surround ourselves with.
Yes. It talks about not letting others take the peace that God gave you and turn it into like this heavy, dark force.
Yeah, that imagery is so powerful. It makes you realize how important it is to be mindful of who you let into your life.
Totally. Because those relationships, they can either lift you up or drag you down. And it's not always easy to tell which is which. It's like you have to develop this sense of discernment, almost like a radar for good and bad energy.
It's true. It's like you need to be able to spot those energy vampires before they, suck the life out of you.
Yeah. And sometimes it's the people we're closest to that can be the hardest to see clearly.
Oh, absolutely. Family, friends, even romantic partners. Sometimes the people we love the most can, without even meaning to, hold us back from being our best selves.
It's true. And then there's their whole other layer that peace talks about. Like on top of everything else, we're living in a world that's just flooded with lies.
Yeah, distractions everywhere you look.
It's like you're constantly being bombarded with information, and it's so hard to sift through it all.
It's exhausting. And how do you know what to believe?
Right, that's the million-dollar question. But the piece, it kind of gives us a clue. It uses this metaphor of like a flower growing from the soil to describe growth.
Oh, I remember that part.
It's saying you can't force it, you have to trust the process. And that ties back to the idea of choice. You can choose who you surround yourself with, choose what information you consume, choose how you react to challenges.
So it's about creating the right environment for yourself to grow.
Exactly. Setting those boundaries. And then trusting that you'll bloom in your own time.
That's beautiful. It kind of makes me think about the whole idea of faith. That part where it talks about standing with God, but also searching within yourself.
Yes, that's such a key point. It's about finding that balance, right? Seeking external support, but also cultivating your own inner strength.
Because ultimately, you have to be able to rely on yourself.
Absolutely. It's like faith can give you guidance, but you have to be the one to take the steps, make the choices.
And that's actually something I wanted to bring up, that quote from Andrew Tate about stress being a signal to move, to take action.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
It really challenges the way we normally think about stress, right?
Totally. Like usually we try to avoid it at all costs.
Right. We see it as a negative thing, something to run away from. But what if, like he's saying, it's actually a sign that we're on the right track, that we're pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone?
That's a really interesting way to look at it. It's like instead of being afraid of discomfort, we should embrace it.
Exactly. Because growth happens when we're challenged, when we're pushed to our limits. And that's how we build resilience. That's how we become the best versions of ourselves.
It's like that saying, no pain, no gain.
Exactly. And I think that's ultimately what this whole piece is about. It's not just about surviving, it's about thriving.
Finding your purpose, living a life that's meaningful.
Yes. And it all comes back to that line about how we're all here for a reason. What do you think your unique reason might be?
That's the question we all have to ask ourselves, isn't it? And I think this piece gives us some really valuable tools to help us find that answer.
It is. It's like a roadmap for navigating the challenges, the distractions, the negative influences, so we can ultimately fulfill our purpose and live a life that's true to ourselves.
Well said. And maybe that's the most important takeaway of all, right? Never give up on yourself.
Never give up.
Keep striving, keep growing.
Exactly.
And most importantly, never go back to the person you were before you started this journey.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, so there you have it. Another deep dive complete. I hope this conversation has given you some things to think about, some new perspectives to consider.
Me too. And remember, the journey of self-discovery is ongoing. There's always more to learn, more to explore, and more to become.
So keep pushing forward, keep asking questions, and keep seeking those answers.
Until next time.
See you then.